Hello there, welcome back to Live from Paris here on France 24. I'm Priya Jones. It's time now for Media Watch with James Cridden. James, thanks for joining us here in the studio.
Good evening.
So this evening we're going to be talking about social media, and the White House seems to think that Twitter helped convince Congress to reach the debt ceiling.
Well,
the debt solution, rather.
Right. Well, if we'll see how long the solution lasts, I suppose. But let's have a look, first of all, at some of the tweets over the weekend by Barack Obama, because, of course, all politicians now have to be on Twitter. They have to follow the where the social medias, where people are talking. So this one here, Virginia Republican representatives on Twitter. And he lists off the names of various representatives of the Republican Party so that you can tweet them personally and put pressure on them. Now, he made this appeal on Friday for Twitter users and internet users to go online and to campaign for a debt compromise using Twitter. And so what he did basically was to, if you like, he spammed a whole load of Republican Twitter users and encouraged his followers, all 9 million of them on Twitter, to get involved. And in fact, so for Mashable, which is one of these websites that analyzes phenomena online, they point out that the White House aide says that the tweets did influence the debt ceiling deal. That is a guy by the name of Dan Pfeiffer. He's the White House communications director. So he, in an exchange...
They know? I don't understand how
well,
they know.
It's their opinion. They think it probably did.
Didn't know for sure.
Right. They haven't quantified it, one would say. But also what they point out online is that a lot of people were actually kind of annoyed about this. And you see several tweets where people were saying, this is spam. It might be time to unfollow at Barack Obama. And indeed, no fewer than 36,000 people, some estimations say 40,000 people, unfollowed him. This is all lingo, of course, from Twitter, which is a micro-blogging website, as we know. Yeah. And so you follow little micro-tweets or micro-messages from politicians. You can choose to follow them on your Twitter account or unfollow them, as 40,000 people decided to do when they saw what they considered to be just too much spam on their Twitter feed. So there you go. Even if they voted for you, I suppose the people don't like to be spammed.
No, I know. Not a good week for Obama, has it?
Right.
No. Okay, so you've also got a story tonight about another Twitter situation.
That's
New
right.
York
Linked.
Times journalist who's been caught out for retweeting.
That's right. Now, it's sort of a complicated story, but if politicians are using Twitter as a tool to get their message out there and put pressure on the public, journalists, of course, also have to try to get involved in that. And the social media editor for the New York Times, when Barack Obama made this appeal on Friday, got in touch with the White House and said, how are you going to organize this appeal online? On Twitter, you have something known as hashtags, and we can have a look at one here. This is, I think I've gone a little bit too far, but you have a Twitter feed basically with hashtags such as compromise, and that is if you type in hashtag compromise, you can find all of the relevant tweets. So she contacted the White House and said, how are you going to organize this? They got back to her and said, under the hashtag compromise. So she retweeted that. She said she retweeted this guy at Mason44 and his advice to organize it under hashtag compromise. Now, what happened was a journalist working for this newspaper, the Daily Caller, interpreted this as her opinion. Now, what she was doing essentially was referencing or putting in inverted commas, if you like, what somebody at the White House had said. This guy misinterpreted what she had done and thought that she was being a biased journalist, a liberal lefty in favour of the White House. Anyway, it just shows, I suppose, the pitfalls for journalists too. If you retweet something like this, people who aren't very familiar with social media could misinterpret what you were actually saying. Now, just very quickly, I'd like to move on to Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Now, another woman has come out of the woodwork. This time it's a woman who says she had an affair with him between 1997 and 1998. She gave 2 interviews to Swiss media, one in a magazine called L'Illustré, in which she said that Dominique Strauss-Kahn is a physical man. Frankly, I do think there was a sexual encounter, she said, between Dominique Strauss-Kahn and the hotel maid. A forced encounter, but I don't know if it was rape. Now, what she said to Swiss television was actually somewhat different. She said, I cannot see him forcing or insisting. You can be physical without being violent. So she seems to have changed her tune in the space of a couple of days in 2 different interviews she gave as to whether or not she thinks Dominique Strauss-Kahn could have been violent or not. Now, I'd like to show online and the American media's take on all of this, because, of course, this is a big story on both sides of the Atlantic. The Gothamist, Strauss-Kahn's ex-lover, Dominic took me in a brusque manner. And for the New York Post, they say that the ex-lover tells accuser's lawyer he was never rough with her. So there is a very different interpretation of what she's saying in these interviews. Confusion around the story.
More confusion around the DSK story. I mean,
exactly.
what more? Yeah, it's what we've come to expect now.
Exactly.
All right, James, thank you very much. That's all from Media Watch. Do stay tuned for the latest news bulletin.